let's call this meeting to order. Welcome, everyone. This is the regular meeting of the City Council, City of Marysville, today, Tuesday, January 21st at 6 p.m. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Hudson.
Here.
Councilmember McKenzie. Here. Councilmember Simmons.
Here.
Vice Mayor Buttacavoli.
Here.
And Mayor Samayoa.
Here. Thanks for everyone being here. Mr. John Cassidy, are you out here?
I'm out here.
Would you please help me and lead the Pledge of Allegiance? Thank you.
I have a gentleman who's been here since Lincoln was president, Eddie John Bell's a senior, so yeah, I just wanted to point that out.
Someone's blocking him. I'm sorry. Sorry.
Long time Union County resident. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the
United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Are there any changes or announcements to the agenda?
There are no changes to the agenda, but I would like to take this opportunity, Mayor and Council, to introduce the newest member of our executive team. We're very excited to have Jonathan Wright, the new Community Development Director, here. Jonathan comes from Reedsport, Oregon, where he was most recently a city manager for the last 7 years there. And prior to that, he was a County Planner 3 in Fairfax County in Oregon. He's also been in the United States Army Infantry, Iraqi Freedom War veteran from 2002 to 2004. He's also an Eagle Scout. Yeah, all right.
landed in my first job.
Very good.
What was your project?
Building trails.
Trails, thank you.
That's good, right? Building trails is good. The only other thing I wanted to mention is Jonathan has a master's degree in public administration, a bachelor's in accounting, certificate administration of justice, and also certificate police officer standards and training. Yes, he did train to be a police officer and a finance director and a planner and a welcome. We're very excited to have you. This makes a full team now, so I'm very happy.
Thank you. Welcome. Welcome, sir. Some people like to go to Oregon and leave California. You're coming here, so we welcome you with open arms. Look at that.
Fishing.
Any closed session reports, Mr. City Attorney?
There are no closed session reports.
Thank you. With that, want to just let the council know and the public know that on Saturday the 18th, we share a proclamation with folks at the U.S. Center Arts Theater celebrating the 170th birthday of the city of Marysville. And that was a lot of fun for those who were able to be there. And Chuck Smith did an amazing job in his presentation. The writing was great, the music was great. So if you weren't there, you kind of missed out a great presentation and a great program. At this point, let's move to Community Consent Calendar Forum. We invite individuals wishing to address City Council concerning consent calendar items or matters in the closed session. Or matters not already on the agenda, we invite you to make oral comments of up to 3 minutes. We ask you to please fill out a speaker's card and submit it to the city clerk. When you're called, we ask you to please go to the podium, give your name clearly for audio recording. You're requested to address your comments to the council and not to the audience. By state law, we let you know that the council is not permitted to undertake any action or discussion on any item not appearing on the posted agenda. If you have any documentation that you would like to distribute to the council, we ask you to please provide it to the city clerk as you approach the podium. Do we have a member of the public?
We do. At this time, I have 5 speakers. First, we'll be hearing from Mr. Bob Harlan, then Virgil Atkinson, John Belza, Dale Hall, and John Cassidy.
Now we have 6.
And followed by Tom Leninger.
Who's number one? Or are you number one? Are you going to take number one lead?
They asked me to hit lead off, as they said. And actually, I have a dual purpose, so I'd like to do it first. Mr. Mayor, Mr. Vice Mayor, Council. I do have a dual purpose today, the first of which I wish I didn't have to say, but I would like to say we lost a longtime community member this weekend. Wayne Nault is a good friend of mine, a good friend of the Gold Sox, and a great community member, invested in this community, kept his business in this community for a lot of years, even built a building here in town, and on Saturday morning early lost him to a brief battle with pancreatic cancer. So I know he did a lot for this community, and just wanted to start off with that. And I don't know if everyone know him, but he did a lot for the Gold Sox, a lot for youth sports, was an umpire and an official, and under my prior world with the Gold Sox, the league we had, he was actually our umpire-in-chief and put together all the umpiring. So it was a great loss for me personally and as a club. So just wanted to hit on that. Now on to what may be happier things. As you know, we've been in discussions with the new lease for the ballpark for the Gold Sox and the new group, and I actually just saw today when I came up, went over to the office and saw my son. He's got an Appeal Democrat from February 2020 on the wall, and it says Gold Sox to return in 2000 and will return this summer. And that was only 11 months ago, whether it was up in doubt whether we're going to be here or not. And I put together a new group, and I read what he said in that, and he was talking about the new group that's taken over, and in our conversations with Ms. Brown, she says, I see you, but I don't know anybody else here that's involved with the club. So we thought it would be a good time to bring a few people just to give you their thoughts on the Gold Sox, what the Gold Sox mean to them, and what the Gold Sox mean to the community. So with that, I'll let everybody else talk, and thank you for the time.
Thank you, sir. Wayne Knoll was our planning commissioner, so we're going to miss him as well.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, City
Good evening.
Council. Good to see you this evening. I'm Bob Harlan, and know most of you quite well, some of you for many years, 30-plus years. And it's really wonderful that the city and the Gold Sox, starting out with the Mudcats in 2000, have been such close partners. And it's been really nice to see what has happened during this past year. It was really nice to be able to see how so many people came together to keep this inexpensive, family-oriented, almost nightly event during the summer here for the public. And there's about 26 owners. We call ourselves co-owners, but we're not in it to make money. We were in it to bring baseball or continue baseball in Marysville. And it's one of those things where a lot of people think, oh, you're an owner. Well, that means you want a lot of people to come so you can make money. Well, we might make a few dollars some year, but that's not the intention. People can better put in their $5,000 or $10,000 into something that is going to have a return on investment. As most of you know, I was involved from the start back in 2000 with the Mudcats. As owner of KUBA and Cool 104 Radio, we broadcast all the games home and away for the Mudcats for that 2-year period. And then, of course, we went through a year with Marysville, attempting to run a baseball team. Hope that doesn't sound bad. And then there was a hiatus year. And then we had some really good leadership come into the community to really tell us how to run a baseball team. So Bob Bavasi got with Don McCullough and several other people, and it all fell together very nicely. And then Tom Lininger and his family came on the scene and ran a very professional product. And for a baseball team this size and at this level, you go to the game and you really felt like you were going to a real baseball game. This year, the Gold Sox is in its second year of renewal. I'm calling it that. I haven't heard anybody else say that. Last year, as Tom mentioned, it was renewed on a 3-month leash, which was incredible what was accomplished with really no time to put together a team. Now, they have put together most of the team already, and it's not February yet. They have a lot of other details that you do as far as scheduling.
We're asking our speaker to hold their speakers in 3 minutes, so 3 minutes just passed, that was the sound of
Okay.
3 minutes.
So anyway, I got all my points across. It's going to be a great year, and I thank you for your support over the past 20 years, and we're looking forward to working with the city of Marysville.
Thank you, sir.
Next, we'll hear from Virgil Atkinson.
My name is Virgil Atkinson. I live in west Yuba City, out near the Buttes. I am here because I was asked to be a part of the owner's team to be able to keep baseball in Marysville. Otherwise, my career in baseball began and ended with Little League. I have family members that play professional baseball, but I don't have anything to rely on pertaining to that. But I would say that when I came to the field the first time and I took a view of the field from a contractor's viewpoint, there was a few challenges that I saw. And then when the wall came down, I saw a few more challenges. And the leadership of this organization is amazing. How many days did it take before they jumped on the things that needed to be done and took care of it? We had people out there, family members and others, pressure washing and cleaning so that we could sit on clean seats, and it was pretty grimy, and all under the bleachers and everything. And so it's been good to see what's taken place. The scoreboard is just beyond incredible. As soon as they fix that thing at the top that says Bob all the time, then that's really what I'm looking forward to.
That's the name of the score board. That's what
Yeah,
we call it, the
top,
Bob
you know,
score. Yeah.
Bob's name will forever be at the top of that list. But I think it's really important to have this field in Marysville. I would hate to say what would happen if it wasn't there, the economic impact and just the community. I have a lot of friends who have been going since day one, and they just absolutely love going to Marysville and watching a baseball game. Most of them are not from Marysville. I think that's a huge plus for Marysville, to be able to have something that attracts people who come to enjoy a game. And so I hope that the decisions that are made will be good towards keeping things moving forward here. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate your time.
Next, we'll hear from John Belza, followed by Dale Hall.
Mr. Mayor and council members, my name is John Belza.
Good evening.
Thank you. Our family came to this town in the 1800s. We've lived here and been here ever since, in Yuba County or Marysville. I'd like to give you a little history of baseball in Marysville. Little League was started in 1937. Then we had the Second World War. Marysville was one of the first towns after the Second World War in 1949-50, started Little League in Marysville. That was a huge thing. We have a history going back with baseball. Lou Gehrig and Babe Ruth came here in the 20s when the ballpark was over. I think it was over by where Huss Brothers is. They came. We had two teams. We had the Yuba City team and the Marysville team, and Lou took one, and I think Babe took Marysville. Marysville won, I think. I'm pretty sure. My dad always said they won. And then when the Giants played here, we had the Sacramento Solons come here and play Marysville Giants. And then when I went through, my dad went through Marysville playing ball. He played for the high school at Bryant Field, which it used to be called Bryant Field. He played Yuba College, Bryant Field, and he played for the Giants. I played for the Marysville High School at Bryant Field and Yuba College at Bryant Field. My brother Tib played at Bryant Field. Now the college and the high schools have their own fields, so the city's not too involved through the schools. When I played at Yuba College, we had a doubleheader with Chico State. They wanted to come to Marysville. The varsity did. We played their varsity, and they wanted to come to Marysville to play in Bryant Field. That's amazing. A four-year college wanting to come to this town at that time of 10,000 people. We split the doubleheader with them. We won. Marysville has always been a baseball town. Tom Lineger, John Cassidy, and Al Montna put this group of 26 people together. Personal contacts, just calling, to save baseball in Marysville. We have a tremendous history. Stassi's Fourth Ward, Max and Brock didn't start Stassi's Fourth Ward. Their dad, both are playing pro ball now. Their dad, Jimmy, played pro ball. He didn't make the big leagues, but he made Pacific Coast League. He didn't start Stassi's. His dad, Bob and his uncle, his dad and his uncle Bob and Sam, they both played pro ball. They didn't start Stassi's. Their great-grandfather, Sam Stassi, started Stassi's. Could I have just a minute?
Yes, sir.
And he was a major league umpire for the big leagues. We had Merlin Anthony came from here, major league umpire for the big leagues. We had Jim Quick, who had his dad had Quick's Glass, major league umpire for the big leagues. We had Ray Webster and one other good buddy of mine, Senior Moment, because I'm getting old. Anyway, we've had a couple besides the Brocker boys, or the Stassi boys, that have made the big leagues from this little town, this little community. Baseball is important to this town. It is really, really important. Like Virgil said, there's not one of us in the 26. When John and Tom and Al came after us to try to save the Gold Sox, that's what we did as a group, to just save them. There's not one of us that want to make a dime. It's tough. I mean, it's hard to get people to come and do it. Now we're getting a lot of kids. We went to a lot of games with our grandkids. They love going and getting the foul balls and watching the little things that they do with the chase around the bases. It's just an important thing for this town, guys. And you guys are doing a good job as a city council. But we've had city councils that have kind of messed this town up. At one time, Bank of America in Marysville had the most cash deposits of any Bank of America in the state of California. Marysville did. It was considered for the capital at one time, and that was after the gold rush. But baseball for a long, long time has been a heart. There's guys, most of them are from the Yuba Sutter area on this 26-person thing. They're trying to save it. There's not one person that's trying to make money. We were told, hey, if we don't do something, we're going to lose baseball. We don't want to lose that park. That's a historical park from 1935. And it can be made bigger, not bigger, but a little better, and it can maybe evolve into even a team that's at a higher level like the Stockton Ports or something. It's a possibility. It's not in the plans. But please try to work with Tom and make this thing come together, because there's not many of us from Marysville and really Yuba County that are on that 26 people. But there are a lot of people who are close in Yuba and Sutter counties. Please try to work with him. He's honest. I just met him this last year. He's a good man. He's honest. He's going to tell you what. I wanted to get back to one thing. Excuse me. When I grew up, this town was awesome. We've lost a little bit. I feel bad for not getting involved with politics. More than half of you know me. I've never been involved with politics. That's why I have a hard time talking.
We'll let Dominique work on that.
Huh?
We'll let Dominique come on in.
Yeah, thanks, Ricky. But some of our city councils have screwed up. You know, we used to have Sears Roebuck, we used to have J.C. Penney's, we used to have the Ford Motor Company, we used to have Chevrolet. We've lost, and you guys are trying to build this town back, and I give you credit for it. I really do.
Thank you, Mr.
I think
Belson.
we're improving it, but we got to keep baseball. Please try to help with Tom to do that, if you would. Thank you very
Mr.
much.
Belson.
Next, we'll hear from Dale Hall, followed by John Cassidy.
I should yield my 3 minutes. Mr. Mayor, council members, my name's Dale Hall. I was a business owner in Yuba County for 38 years. Sold my business to another young guy, so he's doing well in Yuba County. Most of you know me. Did my part of serving the community, and I want to see what's best for both communities, not just Marysville, not Yuba City, but both Yuba and Sutter counties. And as you remember, Bill, on the Marysville Kiwanis, we did a photo shoot when we built the stadium. We had our shovels out there. So as a member of the Marysville Kiwanis Club, we were instrumental in building that stadium, getting it off the ground. And as the Gold Sox, well, it was the Mudcats then, I did color commentating on the TV, donating my time to try to get this thing rolling, and over the years evolved into that. And then my business kind of overtook me a little bit more, but I was still involved in the community, still am. Not involved in politics, that's not my game, but I've come here tonight to hopefully that you guys can see it in your hearts to help us out as just people that came together to try to save this baseball team, to try to keep it in the area, because it is the only thing pretty much in both communities that is a family event. You can take your kids to it, enjoy the ball field, a nice clean environment and safe environment. So I ask you if you can kind of help us along too. We're all try to get as many partners in this thing to try to keep it going and keep it afloat. So if you can work with us, we're willing to work with you guys too. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate your time.
We need a shortstop, and we're trying to get Dale to come out of retirement, but we're not having much luck. Maybe we'll get Butta Cavoli out there at short, so I know we'll have a lot of fans. First of all, thank you, council, for your support last year in partnership, because it really was a partnership in keeping baseball alive. It was pretty last minute, and you know, we laugh about it, but Tom and I talk about Al Montana, and you all know Al. He's been around here forever. He's just one of those kind of people that does the right thing. The baseball stadium at Cal Poly San Luis Obispo is named after Al. Unless you know Al or you know people that went to Cal Poly, you wouldn't know that because that's who he is. This whole group's like that. We got a sprinkling of our ownership group here tonight. I've got a list of the 26 people here. I'll name a few of them in just a minute. But everybody that was mentioned that's played here, from Ruth to Gehrig to Jackie Robinson to Dusty Baker, has fond memories of baseball in Marysville, California. And whether it's the Little League stories that John shared with you, or any of your family members that played. I know Stephanie's family played here. it's something special, and it's kind of the soul of the Yuba Sutter community. There's a lot of soul in Yuba Sutter, and this is something that's we started last season. We had the center field wall collapse on us. We had a lot of challenges that came out of absolutely nowhere that cost us a lot of money. We put a $60,000 scoreboard up there that's brand new, state-of-the-art. Still a lot of work to be done at that park. But because of what baseball has meant here historically, I don't think anybody in this room wants to see it go away. And we're committed to trying to keep it rolling and make it work. And we have 26 owners that are absolutely committed to creating better things for our community, and that means everyone in Yuba Sutter. And Marysville has done a great job with that stadium, keeping it alive and keeping it just there so we can leverage more things in this community. A lot of good things are going to happen in Sutter and Yuba counties over the next 20 to 30 years. There's a lot of good things happening here, and I think baseball is a huge component of that, and we're looking forward to trying to build that. We're in this for the right reasons, and hopefully we can continue the partnership. So I'll share a few of the names: the Jeloviches, the McKellys, the Hilbers, the Montnas, the Liningers, the Morrisons, the Backuses, Kevin Cotter, the Harlan family, who's done so much for this community since I moved here in 1985. It's incredible. The Gallaghers, who's our assemblyman, Tom and Robin Walter, who are involved in everything. The Vaughn family, David from Recology for a number of years, poured so much back into this community. John and Tib Belza, Ron and Pam Sweeney, Matt Walbeck, former major leaguer, and Glenn Gross. The Downing family, my wife Christine. The Tiara family, Jazz and Kamal, Virginia and Roxanne. You heard Virgil here tonight, Atkinson. The Schmalls, Dave and Lynn, they don't live here anymore and they're still invested. Jim King, Rolling Stone Pizza, he's everywhere. Dale Hall, the Country Butcher, and Suk Bossi. So diversity and what we have for this community in the Gold Sox is special, and hopefully we can continue to partner moving forward. And I thank you very much for your time and your commitment to everything you're trying to do to improve Marysville. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate your time.
Sure. Just a comment. My dad played for the Auburn Cubs, John.
Right, correct.
Yeah, Dad played for the Auburn Cubs up here in this field.
Thank you.
Any other comments from public members? Thank you for those who spoke. Thanks for taking the time to come down to our meeting. We're going to move forward to the consent calendar. Items 1 and 2 are in the consent calendar, and those are considered to be routine, are therefore approved by one motion unless a council member or the city manager first requests that a matter be removed from the consent calendar for separate discussion and action. What's the will of the council?
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion by Ms. McKenzie, second by Mr. Simmons. All's in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion's approved with a vote of 5-0. Now we'll move to item 3. This is part of the discussion calendar. Item 3 is Gavin Park Groundwater Well Project. The recommendation is to pass a motion to review and approve the construction bid documents for Gavin Park Groundwater Well Project, and to authorize staff to publicly advertise the project to receive construction bids from qualified contractors to install the proposed groundwater well facilities at Gavin Park and coordinate the bidding phase as needed. Whose staff on it is this? Mr. Platt, sir?
Well, I guess I get to get my feet wet today and actually do a presentation. Mayor and council members, obviously a lot of these projects go way back beyond when I got here. So what the city had done was the California Department of Water Resources was administering Prop 81 funds, and the city applied for those and received those on June 19th of 2018. The city council authorized the submitting of that, and we received that $400,000 grant. On November 14, 2018, the Department of Resources awarded the funding to the city in the amount of the $400,000 and subsequently executed the contract with the Department of Water Resources on January 2nd, 2019. City Council authorized staff to execute agreement with EKI on February 5th of 2019 to prepare bid documents and construction for the groundwater well at Gavin Park, which was voted on by the council and staff, and I believe that's the one that was nominated. And As we all know, PG&E held up the process for a long time on approving the plans as how the city was going to tie into the electrical system for that well. The city has emphasized alternative approaches to reduce the consumption of metered water and electricity at city parks. Washington Square City, or City Square, Washington Square, Circle, Gavin, and East Lake Parks currently rely on commercial treated water to serve those from California Water. Gavin Park was selected, and we have moved forward with that preparation. The plans and specs have been prepared for Gavin Park and will be used as a template for any of the future parks that we would install groundwater services at. EKI has provided the bidding service to assist the city in selecting the contractor to perform the construction work. A bid package was prepared for the public advertisement, and one contractor will be hired to actually perform the well drilling and also the installation of the equipment. Some question has come up about the depth of the well. It was slated at 270 feet, and Mike has provided, this is about the time I would hand this over to Mike, and unfortunately he's not here due to illness. He did send out some paperwork and documentation on other city wells for the parks. I will tell you, I have a little bit of background with agricultural wells and also municipal wells and geothermal. We would never spec it to the bottom of what we would build. We would spec it to what the max we would want to install as far as water production, because it's pretty hard to go forward if you've limited your resources and as far as what you spec'd in the well in the first place. So 270 feet based on the water table and level, and obviously wherever they drill it, and I don't know how the aquifers are actually designed or set up here in the city. I know the water table is extremely high, but we don't want to pull surface water. We want to pull water from actually deeper resources. So when the well driller is actually drilling that, they will determine a lot of that through their drill logs and where they hit the gravel pack, where we have the best concentrations. So the perforated pipe would be in those zones. Any questions?
Any questions? Questions to clarify? I had a question. Do we know what the total cost for the construction of the facility will be? We'll have $306,000 left. Are you planning to use all of that for that particular well?
I sure hope not.
Okay.
So the plan would be, obviously, we had limitations as far as the grant was the $400,000. Some of that is going to get ate up, obviously, in design and the bid specs.
Well, you have
based on the bids and what we find in the preliminary drilling, that'll dictate how much revenue is left based on those bids. So obviously, the city will be mandated to pick the lowest competent bidder. And I have no background here, so I could not tell you what the cost for drilling, but I can tell you under public works projects, it's going to be a lot more than you could do if it was a private well.
And so the trick will be hopefully to be able to use this 306 for multiple drills?
That is the goal.
But
To take it,
till we get the
to
bids.
use every single dollar and take it as far as we can.
But we don't know at this point until you get your bids.
Won't know until we actually get bids back.
Any other questions, clarify?
Through the chair.
Yes, sir.
I'm the one that brought up the issue about the 300-foot well. As you know, I gave you the latest groundwater sustainability plan
Yes.
that we just approved at the Board of Supervisors this morning. And the chart indicates that one of our deepest well in Marysville is about 250 feet. So I challenge that 300 foot, because if we go down and pay $50 a foot to drill, and we go down 300 feet, that's going to lose a lot of money. 50 times 300 is $15,000 just to drill a well. And the idea was, when we did this, was to be able to take the remainder. The $400,000 came after the fact. We were going to fund all these parks under a grant, and that didn't happen. They went out and got this DWR grant for $400,000. And I read that contract, and I got to tell you, that contract's about an inch thick. It's got everything in it, from painting the pipes to everything else. Now, we know agricultural wells in the heatherland out there, it's completely different. I mean, they can sink a well for $2,000 and have pumping water all they want. But anyway, I'm rambling a little bit, but my concern is having sufficient funds to do the other three parks. That's where we're losing money. We're paying $6,000 a month, during the period of time on Gavin Park, approximately that, just for potable water to water a park. And it just doesn't make sense, especially when we're stressing for dollars. I would hope that we would sit back and say, okay, since this contract will be passed, and it'll get the RFP out, et cetera, but I would hope that we wouldn't stop there, that we start an RFP process with the Yuba Water Agency, start funding as grants for these other three parks. I'll guarantee you that $400,000 will probably be used up according to that grant, that RFP they submitted, the contract. There's not going to be much leeway there, and I'd hate to think we're going to wait till after this thing comes in to use this as a pilot for the other three parks.
Well, I would hope we have substantial revenue left. I just recently drilled an 800-foot well, and it was a little over $325,000. So I would hope, being under 300 feet, we're going to spend significantly less for that installation and should have adequate funds left over to do another well.
Well, one well it's a process in working. We need all wells that are on Cal Water off of Cal Water.
Oh, I totally agree with you.
We're paying a tremendous amount of money, and if we don't start that process and start writing requests for proposal to the water agency, and we wait, I'll be off of this board before that's taken care of. And I think it's an urgent thing. That money could be going right into the general fund. We could probably hire another police officer, a fireman, or another public works director on the money we save.
I like that idea.
6 month period. Well, it's reality. We're talking about 6 months pumping and paying that kind of money to water parks in the heat of the summer for 6 months. We're not talking about a year pump. We're not talking about pumping these things for a year. We're talking about 6 months. And so I would hope that once we certify this tonight in this contract, that we don't stop there. We start looking at ways we can fund these other parks.
Understood.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Mr. Barker-Woolley?
Something food for thought that I think we all ought to keep in mind, especially when we're here talking about the baseball field, is not directly related to what you're bringing us, because obviously we're just moving forward here in the right directions, it looks like, waiting on the bids. But something we ought to keep in mind is how much money is spent for water at that ball field too, that we might want to somewhere, that's got to be a huge amount compared to even the parks, and maybe try to slip that into the project that we're doing. Not this specific $400,000, but something down the road that we take a look at.
Yeah, so when you're actually looking at this, you're going to look at your cost, and when you're figuring that, as probably most of you know, your pumping costs are your cheapest expense. It's your power is where your cost per gallon comes from. And absolutely, I'm sure that's not what we're getting charged for our water usage from Cal Water.
I'm sorry? I didn't hear that.
The pumping costs are radically less when we're pumping our own water.
No, I don't know, I totally agree with that, because Cal Water, they're a profit-making organization.
That's what I just said.
I misunderstood.
Our pumping cost for pumping our water is considerably less than what it is for potable water.
Any other questions? Any comments from the public on this matter? Sir, please come up. We have a public comment.
To understand Gavin Park, I'm
Can you
we're
speak
aware
to us,
of Stuart Gilchrist, 101 C Street, and Gavin Park is one of the three parks that Helix Environmental put forward for grants, and I want to make sure that whatever the design is, the location of this pump is in alignment with what Helix has proposed. So I just want to make sure that you get that plan. There is an actual plan of Gavin Park. It's the proposed plan. It was presented to City Council, and we approved moving forward with getting those grants. We should find out about this time whether or not we have those grants, but it's been designed. So basically, just to let you know. So I'm very interested to make sure that you connect with Jessamine Inlet, with the Helix Environmental Planning that has designed 3 of our parks. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any other public comments? So let me, I think what Stuart was talking, we I don't know if you know, I imagine you know that we asked for dollars from Prop 68 to improve 3 of our parks, and one of them, I guess, is Gavin Park. So we want to make sure that the 2 projects don't conflict with each other. That whatever we do, if we do have to have the money for Prop 68, that we kind of do it all kind of in conjunction with each other.
Yeah, and we're supposed to hear about that sometime in this first quarter of the year.
Correct.
We did actually coordinate with EKI, and they've seen the plans and moved actually slightly moved the well because of the plans. So we've done that.
Thank you. And I think I'm in agreement with Councilmember Simmons. I feel like we need kind of a further, deeper analysis on what is it going to be to cover the entire cost and design to do all the parks, to do that exercise, so that we're not doing one by one, that we're kind of maybe looking at the entire projects, because I think our partners at the Yuba Water Agency may be interested in helping us out with the cost of the entire project, not just doing one by one. And I think that's what I'm hearing from Councilmember Simmons, that we might have an opportunity, if we do it as a larger project than just one by one, that we might look at saving some dollars and just kind of, if we put it out there for bid for all 3 projects, instead of just putting out to bid one project.
Well, that's council's pleasure. Right now, I'm bringing what was actually flown from
but I mean, do you see, would that make sense, or what were your thoughts on that?
Well, I'm looking at an area that probably has ready availability to actually well drillers. With all the agriculture here, they're all around us. So usually it would be if they're moving in, you're going to have them move in and move off. You're going to have that at every site because it's not going to be the same. So they're going to have to deal with that at every site. It's not going to make that big of impact, knowing that you have as many drillers up here as you have right now.
So you still propose to do it one by one, or look for?
Well, you could put it out and say you want 3 wells drilled or 2 more, or however you want to follow this after that, but your cost isn't going to change a whole lot because these are local drillers up here.
I guess the design cost, is it going to be transferable?
Well, absolutely. No, that's already been figured into this. So once we have the design, every well drilled is going to be a little bit different based on what the driller does when he's drilling that well. So where the gravel pack is, you could drill a well 100 feet away, and it's going to be drilled differently than the one.
So I'll go around and ask the council if there's an interest. And my interest would be to just go after all 3, the request for proposal for all 3 of them. We have the $300,000 left over from the grant, and whatever is the delta between the cost of all 3 and whatever in the $300,000, then maybe we can go ask our partners at Yuba Water Agency. Is that what your thoughts are, Mr. Simmons?
Thought perfectly.
Any thoughts about that, folks?
I have a question. Will that work with the grant? I mean, how does the grant requirements work with that?
Well, I think it'll work fine with the grant requirements. I think the original thinking was to create this as a template, use the money as much as needed from the grant, and then after that, do the rest of them all at once and replicate it from here on out. Because we don't know until we drill actually how deep. We're hoping it won't be 270 feet. We don't think it will be. We're hoping the pump won't be as big as what's in there, but we expect everything to the maximum. And the plan was then to go back to the water agency and get the remaining funds for all
So
the other
in their
funds.
bid, then they won't know the cost? They're gonna have to figure out as they're drilling? Is that their bid gonna be look like? Or are they gonna give us a specific cost?
It's not the drilling, it's the design. So they're going to drill per foot. So we're going to pay based on how deep they drill. So if they drill 200 feet and at 50 feet they hit a massive aquifer where they have the gravel pack, they're going to set the perforations at that point. That will dictate how deep you want to set your bowls on your pump. And I would imagine these are submersibles, not turbines. So that's where that's determined. So the shallower it is, the cheaper it is to pump. The deeper it is, the more expensive it is to pump. The fear would be is if you bid all three and you come in over your roughly $300,000 to finish this, you can build them. It's going to be a question of, do you want to accept the bids at that point when you don't, I don't know where the funding is at that point, because you're on a pretty tight time frame to get this actually done.
I guess that's what I'm saying, that our partners at Yuba Water Agency may be interested in supporting this.
But I don't know, we can pursue that, but I don't think it's going to have any impact on the cost on pursuing this to get it done and then release the other wells behind that.
Okay, I'll go around and get thoughts from folks.
I can just say from experience,
Yes.
what Craig's talking about is correct. This is not going to be, other than if you're giving somebody 10 wells, they might give you somewhat of a discount, but basically it's pretty fixed costs per footage drilling. Setting up the engineering and everything is going to be the template for all of the rest of them. So once we get one done, it's basically going to be that amount times however many. It's a move-in, setup, tear down, get out. The next one's going to be the same cost. Move in, set up, tear out, come down. So I understand where you're going with it, and I would like to see us, after we get that first amount, that first bid in, and realize where we're at, that then we can go to Yuba Water if we want, knowing we want to do 2 or 3 or 4, the
However many wells you have
the
after
baseball
that.
field, I hope, so.
Yeah. So my recommendation would be is we drill the well, establish that, and then transpose that to all the rest of them, bring that to council and say, here's where we're short, go to the water board and say, here's what we need, because that, I'm sure, is going to take some time.
Simmons, are you
Yeah, I
okay
think
with that?
what he's saying is what was the vision at the beginning, because the water agency wanted to have a tech spec on the grant. They won't just give you $100,000 because you like to have it. And this particular well was going to be the demonstration well to give us a tech spec that we could go to the water agency.
Yeah.
I have had commitments from the chair of the water agency and members that they support this. All we have to do is get our tech specs in there.
Yeah.
So hopefully that this particular water project will be
Establish
expedited. The electricity's there, I don't know, and also the electricity for the other wells, there's a work order that's been in there for 1.5 years at PG&E. I gave the work order number to Marty, so that portion's done. But the point I'm trying to make is, once we expedite this well, and if you want to drill another one, throw it in there and put it, or pump out of Ellis Lake, take the water out of Ellis Lake and pump it into the ball field and water it out of that. We have overlay water rights. We can do that.
Yeah, and
But the point I'm trying to make, I'm being a little facetious, but we need to get this done and then go back and use the tech specs on this to apply for the grants of the water agency. And that was the vision when we started. Is that correct?
Absolutely. And what I don't know is what the power situations are at those other parks, what the 3-phase is available. And that could be extremely spendy if it's not there, the 3-phase to run it.
Well, it's 3-phase power, and I think when we went out and did a preliminary on it, that the transformers in some areas, like on Washington Square, it has to be a conduit ran from where the utility is, the transformer, underground over to where the pump station is. Because that used to come from over where the Panda Express, that's where the well was.
Yeah.
It runs under, but anyway.
And so my only point was, we don't have that variable right now and would have to research the power for those other sites. And that could be a problem.
So let's move forward unless there's any other comments, because I like to have, Mr. Simmons, you entertain a motion to approve the construction bid documents for the Gavin Park Grandwater Park well project, and 2, authorize staff to publicly advertise the project.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Is there a second?
Second.
Ms. Brown, did you want to say something?
Well, I was just gonna suggest maybe that I could come back to the council with a schedule of applying to the water agency exactly what they want and the timeline, so that we can make sure we're staying on track.
That sounds very, very professional to do that. That way we at least have some movement, Mr. Chairman. Because sometimes it gets pigeonholed over here and doesn't make the.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Motion and second on the floor. Any further comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Against?
Thank you, council.
Thank you. Motion's approved with a vote of 5-0.
Marty, this is a good letter. It answered all my questions.
You said so.
Yeah, it did.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Drive carefully, John, you're on a time limit.
Item 4, this is annual Measure C report, year in review for fiscal 17-18. We're asking, staff is asking council to pass a motion to receive and file the fiscal year 2017-18 Measure C report. Ms. Brown?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. As you may recall, the first Measure C report was filed with the council in December of 2018. That was a portion of our very first year of Measure C. That was 9 months of receiving 1 cent sales tax. This is the first year of a full 12 months of the Measure C 1% sales tax. And you'll see some similarities, well, some of you might recall, some of you might not, some similarities from the last report, because there's a number of items that are ongoing, and so we're able to continue to pay for those, including the police vehicle replacement, and 2 patrol officers, 3 firefighters, reopening City Hall 5 days a week, and of course then the maintenance of effort for streets to receive SB1s. So those are and also, the new support services manager position. So all of those are ongoing expenses that we'll see again in the next future Measure C reports. For one-time expenditures, we completed the implementation in this fiscal year of the new finance software, Tyler Encode, that we have now in the finance department. We completed the Parks and Open Space Master Plan and paying for that, as well as completed paying for the city's website. And then in conclusion, the remainder of the monies, as you can see at the top of the table in your staff report, the actuals for fiscal year 17-18 were $2,674,433 after we deduct everything I just listed for the council. There's a remaining little over $1.4 million that's left for reserve and cash flow. So that is where we stand for the fiscal year 17-18. If this is, assuming it's received by the council, I will take it and actually create another flyer be available to the public and on the city's website. The one other thing I just would like to mention is that I think next year's, the next fiscal year 17 annual report will come out shortly after the audit, which should be coming to the council at the end of February, and then we'll be working on that one. I think we'll start to see some real shift in the story and the narrative, because will be the first fiscal year where we really had a sense of the funds that the city had for leveraging, especially one-time monies for grants, for example, and some of the other things that this past fiscal year in 18-19 coming up, we were able to do that we haven't been able to do in other years. So I think the narrative and the story will be a lot more compelling, especially as we move forward and march forward with Measure C, which has an expiration date, as you all know, of 2026. So hopefully this story will be a lot more robust in future annual reports. And that concludes my presentation, unless you have questions for me.
Any questions?
Yes.
Yes.
I would like to see this be put in the Territorial Dispatch as well as Appeal Democrat, because all people don't have, and I think it needs to be put in there, your report on that, and making sure that all the public has an opportunity to review it.
Good point. Thank you.
I will do that.
What was the budget amount for that year? For Measure C revenue? What was the expected?
Oh, the projected Measure C in 17-18?
Let me pull up just one moment.
Take your time, don't
I
worry.
think it was closer to like just over 2 million.
I don't think so.
For 17-18?
I don't know.
Okay. Oh, you're right. I think it was quite a bit lower.
Yeah.
Because that was the budget that,
Anyway, I want to say it was about 1.7. But in any case, it doesn't matter, just that it's unbelievable how well it's performing. And my understanding and looking at some of the other numbers coming from HDL, that, we're hitting the 3 million marks. And that's incredible. So, thank you for shopping in Marysville. There's something to say about that in the sense that voters tax themselves, but at the same time, we're taking advantage of people just, having to drive through our town and taking advantage of lower cost gas than other places. I don't know if you guys saw the relative prices of fuel here versus even like across the bridge in Yuba City. I mean, it's like almost 20-cent difference and stuff that we tend to be cheaper. Why? I have no idea, but we'll take it. So, yes?
So the original budget was 1.4 million for that year.
1.4?
That was the projection.
Oh, very good.
Sorry,
So-
the internet's really slow here, so.
So it's almost $1 million two over than what we had projected, so that's unbelievable. So any comments from the public? Seeing none, we'll entertain a motion to receive and file the fiscal year 2017-2018 Measure C report.
So moved.
Motion by Ms. McKenzie, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Hudson, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion is approved with a vote of 5-0. Now we have approval application for funds to the State Water Resource Control Board for the closure of city wastewater treatment plant ponds. A recommendation for staff is to pass a motion authorizing the city manager to apply or her designee to apply for funds, pledge the revenue funds of the level sufficient to satisfy the State Water Resource Board's obligations to receive the grant, and 3, should the loan be awarded and not the grant, adopt obligations to reimburse the State Water Board for projects. And this comes also from Mr. Platt, sir.
So this is mayor and council members. So here's another long, old project that has been going on since 2012. You guys probably know a lot more about this project than I do. So I don't think I need to probably give you a whole lot of background on how we got here. As we know, the state has the city on a very tight mandate, and the costs have been extensive, converting the wastewater treatment plant and tying into the Linda water or sewer system. There's roughly 2 years left on the decommission of the wastewater ponds, and the city contracted, as you know, with Bennett Engineering in May of 2019 to meet the State Water Resources Control Board order and seek funding for both funds for the decommissioning of the wastewater ponds. What we're hopefully applying for, which they have been submitting paperwork and documents that we have been tracking down over the last month as they're uploading those docs to the state. They're applying for a grant up to $6 million that could be any combination of a low-interest loan, which would be a 30-year loan. It could be a grant or a combination of a loan and a grant. We're not sure, and we're not going to know exactly what it is until the state receives all that documentation. They look at the city's financials, and then they're going to come back and tell us what they're going to do for us. And part of that application process is the city council needed to pass 2 resolutions committing funds, and I've actually honestly never seen that where we're doing a resolution before we actually even know what we're going to receive. But the state required as part of the application to pledge and constitute, which will end up being a lien in favor of the State Water Resource Control Board on the foregoing funds and revenues without any further action, and those will stay in place until those have all been paid back. And so we're here to actually get 2 resolutions passed that we can submit within the application. And we really won't know what we're going to bring back to you as far as what is approved or what the state approves until we get that back, or we could get nothing. the construction cost on just the levee work, or not the levee, but the ponds, is estimated to be about $2 million to remove all those ponds. Currently, as you probably know, we've spent somewhere it'll be about $3.5 million in this process. And that's why, obviously, one of the things that was tasked to Bennett's original agreement was to seek funding sources to actually pay for those. This would extend their contract by about $160,000 max, extending their contract to the $450,000. So this is all part of that process. The state added, once they reviewed the information, they added these tasks. So what we're asking for you to do is actually approve two resolutions so we can submit it with the state's application for funding.
Thank you. And these funds that we are, if we pass this set of resolutions, would be from our enterprise fund, right? Not our general fund?
No, it'll come from the enterprise fund, and that's part of the requirement. So we'll have to maintain and sustain rates to actually meet these requirements.
And was that math done during our when we did we changed our rates this past year?
Yes, there was additional funding included in the rate study to look at doing something like this. Yes, we weren't sure yet what we were going to do, but unfortunately, our sewage bonds didn't include the decommissioning portion of the ponds. It only included the Linda Main connection, and so that's why we've had to look for additional funding, because of course we don't have $3.5 million or so in the enterprise fund at this time. We are eligible for up to $6 million from this particular loan program. Our contractor thinks that we have a really good shot at it, but you don't know until you apply, as Craig said, so it could be a combination or a loan, but we're hoping for a full 100%.
So can we deny it and go for, borrow from a bank or something? I mean,
Well, you'll always have the ability, you're going to have to approve the loan in any format that it is. So that would always come back to council. This doesn't obligate you. It just says if you accept, at that point, if you accept the loan, which will have to come back, council will have to accept whatever arrangement, because we have no idea how it's going to be formed right at this point.
Okay.
So you're not committing to actually any money, because we don't have any money to tell you what you're actually getting. So we're just applying for up to $6 million. They can go back and say we have nothing, and then we're going to actually bring back other options, because there's some other options that we can bring back as far as the wastewater ponds.
But as a requirement to apply, we have to have these resolutions passed.
Yes.
And any other further questions?
I have one question.
Let's say,
Go ahead.
you guys want a knuckle finger? Go ahead, Mr. Barcoli.
The question I got is, we're looking at $2 million for the decommissioning. We're asking for $6 million, some of it for reimbursement. But then we're talking about that it would be could be a combination of grants and loans. So even if we're going for reimbursement, are we asking to reimburse with a loan? That's what this looks like to me. We're trying to get the $6 million, 2 to cover the ponds, 4 to cover past costs, but then we're looking at possible grants and possible combinations. So whatever's not a grant, we're going to borrow against what we already spent?
We've requested up to $6 million. They can come back and give us the whole $6 million, and because of our financials, it's ours. There's nothing.
That's if it's fully granted.
Yes, or they're going to come back and say, based on your financials, we'll give you a $5 million, and you're going to do a loan, low-interest, long-term loan for the million for however long they say. Or it could be the opposite.
That's my question, right?
But you would always accept.
With that example you just gave, everything above the 2 million is for reimbursement of past costs. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's actually
2
a lot.
million for decommissioning, Anything else is for reimbursement of what we've already spent.
That is how it's structured.
Some of that,
correct?
yes.
So I guess my question would be, if we only got any amount less than the 6, why would we borrow? Why would we make it a combination? Why wouldn't we take just 5, just 4, whatever the grant is? That way we're getting the 2 million for the decommissioning, we're getting a partial reimbursement, but we wouldn't want to get the reimbursement back on
For
a
something
loan.
we already paid for, basically.
I know, but we don't want to go borrow money to pay that back in a loan,
Right.
right? So why would we take anything beyond what's granted to us?
And that's why once we know what we're going to get, then we'll bring that back to council. And there's some other options. So based on what happens, there are some other options with the ponds that I wasn't going to bring up, that we could eliminate $2 million right off the top, depending on what the state does in the process. But we're applying to finish the whole project. But we aren't going to know what the state's going to do until they review the financials within this application.
So keep in mind, we have a pretty strict deadline of December 2021 to decommission the bonds and clean everything up. And so the portion, we're asking for as much as we can get of free money, including the money that would be paying for past work.
Right.
But if that doesn't happen, we could say, if they only came back and said, well, we're only going to give you X amount, and you can use it partially to decommission your ponds or partially to try to recoup the money from before. Well, like you said, why would we do that? We're not going to try to take out a loan for money that we've already spent.
That was my point.
Yeah, we wouldn't do that.
If it was, they gave us 1 million and we needed to borrow 1 million to complete the project, that would make sense.
The thing is
But it
that we
sounded
think we
like
have a
we were
good shot
going-
at getting all of it in a grant, but we won't know until we try, so that's why we're
okay.
doing it.
And honestly, that is the
I
whole.
agree, it doesn't make sense to us either entirely, but
Yeah.
this is what our contractor has said, you gotta go for you gotta
Okay.
shoot for the whole thing,
Okay,
and
as long
then
as
see.
we're not just borrowing.
No.
Yeah, okay.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
I think I read in the update that they said this is the last extension that we will get. Did I read that correctly?
Not for the
Not-
ponds.
not on-
That-
not
that
on the
was
ponds.
It was
for-
for the ponds.
No, it was the
No, it's
last extension for
aeration.
the aeration of the pumps in Ellis
Okay,
Lake.
but,
That was the last
That's much
extension.
water.
Which was tied to
So the
this.
last extension, in other words, you got to do that, or are we going to get money back? The remaining money.
For aeration project, that's correct, we're getting our last extension. For this project, if we do not meet the December
Yeah,
2021
we're dead.
deadline, we will be facing penalties probably. So we're hustling.
Well, I was surprised to read that we did ask for an extension on the aeration project, because I asked that 15 times, I think, maybe two. Why haven't we asked for an extension? And I've
I'm
got-
pretty sure it's Craig's fault.
I think it's Craig's fault.
It probably was.
No,
I
it was
probably
that
thought
lawyer
about
that
it.
we hired that nobody knew about. She told everything was okay. Come to find out, it wasn't okay, because we had never applied for the extension.
Yeah, they're not happy, but hopefully in
No,
the
they're
end of
not
this, we'll
happy.
make them happy.
I'm just waiting. Okay, anyway.
Any other
Thank you.
questions?
No, I'm good.
Any comments from the public? Okay, seeing none, any further comments here from the council members? Well, if not, I'd like to entertain a motion to apply for the funds and approve the 2 resolutions as stated in our package for item 5.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Hudson, second by Ms. McKenzie. Is that going to meet your requirements, sir? Mr. Platt? Does that meet your
Yes.
requirement? Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Against? Seeing none, motion's moved with the vote of 5-0. Thank you. Passed. I need to eat. Item
Might as well stay
6.
there. Might as well stay there.
I am.
Oh, you're staying here?
I am.
Mr. Platt, tell us about item 6. This is a contract amendment with Bennett Engineer for wastewater treatment ponds closure. The recommendation for staff is to pass a motion authorizing the city manager or as they need to execute Amendment number 1 to the existing agreement with Bennett Engineering in the amount not to exceed $160,000 to cover additional work required by the State Regional Water Control Board for the closure project and a new contract amount not to exceed $450,000. Mr. Platt.
Mayor and council members, I think we recapped almost everything within this, is why we're applying for $6 million. The city council approved an agreement with Bennett Engineering to meet the state's mandate in closing the wastewater treatment ponds. Since that was issued in 2019, the state came back with some nice new requirements that the city was going to have to do that was out of the 9 task orders that Bennett Engineering was assigned to do. And those all, what that tied down to was additional geotechnical pre-construction activities, dewatering of the ponds. Unfortunately, at the point of time, they actually collect water, being that they're at the lowest point of the city, and when it rains, guess where the water goes? So those were dewatered before the testing could be done, which was actually put in place to see how much soil was going to have to be remediated and removed from the site. Thank goodness it's not a lot. Plus, CEQA documents needed to be prepared and reviewed. So those tasks, being that Bennett is actually managing our contract, they're actually soliciting this work. We're not, and actually paying for it. And that came to about $160,000. So what we're asking you to do is amend their contract of $290,000 to the $450,000, not to exceed.
The 160. Not to exceed the 160?
Yes.
Yes.
So they have a total contract now of $450,000, not to exceed.
Thank you. Any questions? Comments from the public on this matter? Seeing none, I'd like to entertain a motion to authorize.
To the chair.
Yes, oh, I'm sorry.
I need this explained to me a little more.
Sure.
I'm not recalling this of what we were doing. What was the original 160 for?
No, it was 290. It was.
That's what you're asking for now, is the 290,
No,
correct?
160.
Oh, for the additional 160.
Yes, for task order addition, or number 1.
Gotcha. Okay.
Amendment number 1.
Okay, gotcha.
Which brings it to $450,000.
Mm-hmm.
Any further questions? Does that work for you, sir?
Yeah, I'm a little behind on this one, I guess,
Yeah, and
where we're at with everything.
It would almost been better to do the other, but we have included these costs and expense in the request of the $6 million, so this is accounted for.
Okay. That makes sense.
Would you like to entertain a motion, Vice Mayor?
I will.
Motion's
Make
entertained. Is there a second? Second by Ms. McKenzie. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion's approved with a vote of 5-0. Thank you.
Thank you, council.
Now we have item 7, adopt by reference the 2019 California Fire Code, 2019 California Building Standard Code, and 2019 Electrical Code. Recommendations to pass by motion the 2 items listed here. And this is coming from our police chief, Mr. Sachs.
Mr. Mayor, honorable council members. So the state's adopted the new 2019 fire, electrical, and building standards codes to repeal and replace the previous codes from 2016. So we're currently operating off the 2016 standards, and in order to maintain consistency with current codes and standards, we're here before you to ask for the following recommendation that's outlined in the staff report. This also falls in line with our new code enforcement strategies for following all the current codes. So we're requesting to pass a motion to waive the first reading and review of an ordinance amending Municipal Code 1320-010, adopting by reference the 2019 California Fire Code, including appendices A through O, amending the Municipal Code 1304-010, adopting by reference the 2019 Building Standards Code, Part 2, Building Code Volumes 1 and 2, including appendices B, D, F, H, I, and J as set forth in Part 2 of Title 24 of the California Code of Regulations, and amending the Marysville Municipal Code, Chapter 1404-010, adopting by reference 2019 Electrical Code, including all of the appendices thereto, and then directing the city clerk to publish and comply with California Government Code Sections 50022.3 and 6066 with the second reading and adoption scheduled for February 18th, 2020, because we have to allow for the 15 days publishing, and we will have all of these documents printed out and available 15 days ahead of time, which would be February 3rd, in the office of the city clerk for review. Be happy to answer any questions for you.
Questions?
The chair.
Yes, sir.
So, Chief, you said that we are currently under the 2016 codes?
Correct.
Because the municipal code that for the city of Marysville says we are in 2006 for a lot of these things.
Yeah, for the municipal code, yeah, on that side of it, we're coming back for Title 13 and 14 at the next council meeting, but the most current building code that Gary Eady, our prior building official, was using was the adopted 2016 one, on information he was provided to me. So the 2019s came out, and so the recommendation was to bring it forward to adopt the 2019 codes.
Yeah, 2019 just came out January 1 of this year.
Yeah.
But they were authored, I think, in July. So are we talking about just changing all of Title 24 within the city municipal code, or are we specifically just going for what you have stated here, volumes 1 and 2 with the noted appendices? You're not touching like Chapter 9 or Chapter 10 of Title 24?
Just what's noted here.
Just what's noted there?
Yeah, and this comes from a recommendation from our fire chief as well. So, and then we'll come back and we're looking at, on this one here, this is what we're looking at. In Title 13 and Title 14 of our municipal code that outlines fire code and some of the other building codes under the municipal code side, there is a recommendation coming to council at the next council meeting on February 4th about some other recommended changes from staff. But for this evening only, it's just the 2019 fire code with the appendices and that are listed here, along with the building electrical code as outlined here based on a recommendation from both department heads.
So what are the current building electric code? What is our municipal code currently for those codes right there? Is it 2006? Is it 2016? What has been written on? What have we been writing on?
I don't recall what the municipal code has in it from the last time I looked at it. I just know the building official for the city was going off of 2016.
Was that the contracted building official? Or
yes, Gary, our contracted building official, yes.
So
I've had the opportunity to work with him the last few months before he left and before the transition for Jonathan coming and working with Gary. He said the latest one that he was going off of was 2016.
Yeah. So you're saying that this is to help work with what you want to do with the code enforcement and where you want to go with it. Is that what I'm understanding?
That's correct. And there's things that have changed and the state updated from 2019 or from 2016 to 2019. So the recommendation is to adopt by reference these new codes so we're with the current standards.
So with a little bit of concern with that, knowing that most of these codes and standards are generic for the state of California, going with the fact that, there's a saying, when in Rome, do as the Romans do, but we're not in Rome, and most of these rules were made for other jurisdictions that have the capabilities of new construction and so forth. There's general concern with, in my establishment, there's a lot of contractors that come through that have voiced their malcontent with wanting to take jobs in the city of Marysville and so forth. And so I have concern, are we trying to bring every building up to code? Chapter 9 and Chapter 10 specifically are about the historical and the existing building codes on Title 24. So we're not messing with those? In the near future, where do you want to go with code enforcement is where I want to go with this.
Where do I want to go with code enforcement?
Yeah.
Well, the strategy is to make sure we have the current codes that the state has adopted, and then there's another recommendation coming, like I said, on the 4th of February for that council meeting for Title 13 and 14 that has the fire code, electrical code, and building code in it under our municipal code. And under Title 13 and 14, there is recommendations from the building official along with the fire official on changing some of those recommendations in there. As far as code enforcement goes, we want to have the most up-to-date standards that the state has. So when we're out there whether they're doing building inspections, and that has to be with code and compliance there. This also goes in line with all the other chapters that we've already updated with our nuisance abatement from last month, and also the animal care service is the one that we reintroduced. So we're updating all of our codes because there's a representative from each entity on that code enforcement task force, and we want to make sure that we have consistency across the board as we're doing our enforcement strategy.
So again, just to reiterate, you're just talking about what is stated right here, Part 1 and 2 of Title 24 right now.
That's correct.
And so next meeting will be a little more in-depth in the 13 and 14 of our municipal code in regards to those titles?
Correct. It'll be, yes, it'll be there is recommendations from the fire chief and from the building department to make amendments to Title 13 and Title 14. Chief Carlin will be here to present on the fire code changes, and then I've reached out to Gary Eady. He will be here to help present the recommended changes for Title 13 and 14 for the building electrical code at that point in time.
Okay, so we're just touching on bits and pieces of Title 24, not all of it.
That's correct. This one came first because this one has a public notice and has a 15-day requirement, and we're trying to get all these done as quickly as we can and in order. So we did the reintroduction of the other ordinances, the second reading tonight on the consent calendar. This one comes tonight. We have to allow 15 days for posting, so the soonest we can bring this one back is the 18th. But in the middle of that, on the 4th, we're going to bring the Title 13 and 14 changes before council, get recommendations from council in reference to that. If it passes that evening, we're on to second reading on the 18th along with this one, and then we're off and running, by the middle of March. If the recommendations aren't approved or there's other recommendations out of the Title 13 and 14th, we'll go back to the drawing board, bring that back on the 18th as well, and when we'll go from there. But we're trying to streamline the process and get everything in order.
Because in Title 13, it does have a section on historical buildings. So is there a specific thing that you want to work on that, or is it just bring it up to the 2019 codes as written in Sacramento, not necessarily pertaining to what we have in Marysville?
So on the Title 13, we're actually still in a little bit of the revision phase right now. I can get back to you and follow up with you on that specific code section, but I know that there's recommended changes on, this is one of them, this adopting by reference. There's 18 sections, or 18 chapters in that section. So this one takes care of one of them. So the other 17 left, there's recommended verbiage in 14 of those 17 from Gary.
Okay.
So, but I can get the one with historical buildings, I can get that recommendation out as soon as we have it finalized, and I'm hoping we're going to have it finalized sometime by the end of this week or first part of next week with staff.
What exactly is you looking to finalize? I'm sorry.
Meeting with the city attorney and having him do the final review on any of the recommended changes. So Gary made the recommended changes, we'll send it to the city clerk for formatting, goes to the city attorney for review. We're going to sit down and have a meeting in reference to it internally with the city manager about all the recommended changes, and then once we've gone through that process, then we'll be able to put it and agendize it and move it forward.
Okay.
So we're close.
Chair?
Yes, Mr. Burkholder.
The question I thought that was coming out of Brad was the implementation and the enforcement when this code, and I'm specifically thinking of sprinklers within the buildings. Is this going to be that we're going to go back to existing buildings and say, hey, you got to put sprinklers in this, or is this going to be moving forward on new projects?
This is moving forward on new projects. However, Title 13, and I'll let the fire chief comment on the sprinkler side of it, but the recommendations that I saw as far as the sprinkler side of things is 1320 it's in Title 13, Chapter 1320, and that's what's coming the next council meeting.
Okay.
So if there's any other stuff on fire sprinklers.
And just to clarify to that comment, is all we're for tonight is just adopting by reference the current 2019 fire code, which is moving forward. with any new
Okay.
construction.
And then if, possibility, if somebody was, if a commercial building was a rental and it was released to a new business where you had to go in and do a new inspection based on that, then is it going to have to be implemented?
The only time.
I don't want to unduly hurt
Right.
somebody, but at the same time, we want to keep the safety
Sure.
aspect. I get that.
As much as we love fire sprinklers,
Yeah.
the only requirement for change is occupancy type classifications.
So it could be if somebody changed the
if
type
somebody went-
occupancy to their warehouse.
Exactly. If it changed from one occupancy to another and it was triggered by the fire code, then it would require fire sprinklers. We wouldn't arbitrarily say it needs to have it, but it's only by the fire code recommendation by occupancy change.
So is it by the type of occupancy or is it by the size of the building?
Occupancy type.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? I got a question/comment, and I've had a conversation with the city manager on this, on my thoughts on what the expected outcome in my mind should be as we move forward and we're trying to gain new investment in Marysville and try to get new investment where there's lofts above buildings in downtown Marysville on D Street or new uses in the commercial area on D Street or different areas and older buildings and stuff. For example, the Spicery is a great example that they took a building and they used it for manufacturing in the back and they use it retail in front and they use other uses upstairs. I want to make sure that whatever we're doing at the end result is going to make it easier for new investment and not make it harder or costlier. So I guess all that technicality, I trust the staff, hear from the council, or at least hear from me, that we should be moving into a direction where it makes it easier for private investment to come in and trying to be creative in the use of some of these older buildings for whether it's manufacturing of things like Spiceries or office space or whatever it may be, or residential's upstairs. That I think that should be the goal of these set of exercises. So I guess for me, it's the questions to staff, and you don't have to answer right now, is keep that in mind as we're moving forward and changing our codes to ensure that we facilitate new investment and make it easier for people to come in.
Works.
Any comments from the public? Any other comments from,
Just one
Yes, sir.
general comment. The reason you would want to change this municipal code would be because of state requirement. We wouldn't just arbitrarily go in and change it because we feel like changing it.
I don't know if it's a requirement.
It's not a
That's
requirement.
that's something.
I'm just asking.
Yeah, yeah.
That's my question.
Yeah. And I think for me is, I think, you've never answered this question, is, as a charter city, are we required to adopt state codes? And I don't believe we can't. We have to. It's a best practice, maybe, but for me, the best, for us, we should move forward to make it easier for people to invest in their property, or if there's new use in their property. We shouldn't make it harder for people to cost more to come in. I mean, public, safety is an important thing. We want to make sure, that it's a safe building. We should make sure we lower the barriers, not make them higher.
Agreed. I'm through the chair. I mean,
Yes.
I agree with you that, Mayor. The whole thing is that life safety is huge, but being a charter city, we can do whatever we feel is necessary within that. It's life safety is something we need to take in total consideration for every step, but as far as adopting state suggested codes and so forth, I mean, we don't have to. We stick with.
Be careful.
There are some limitations in that. If they're bumping up, we've been on 2006, 2008, and 2013 for all these years thus far.
Yeah.
So, are we saying we want to go up to 19? Is this going to make it more difficult for what we're talking about? Not only new business coming into town, but existing business that's in here. Are we going to go back and enforce?
To the chair. I have a question for staff then. What is our legal requirement as far as updating our codes?
Well, being over the building department before, I don't think whether we accept them or not, we're required to enforce them when they come out. We don't, the councils don't have to accept the rules, but we're supposed to enforce the latest standard that came out. So even if we don't apply it, we're supposed to go by the 2019, regardless of what the council does. That's a state requirement.
It's the state requirement that city staffs go by the current codes.
You're
and that they
supposed to
haven't been
follow
adopted by
the
the
current
city?
released code when it comes out, regardless of, I mean, it's a procedural thing that we adopt it to enforce it, but we're required to enforce that latest code when it's released by the state.
Even though it's documented in the municipal code of prior.
Doesn't matter, we're still required as an entity to enforce the current code.
Because it's an industry standard, basically.
Yes.
So we have to comply with that industry standard.
And that's why Gary was going over this 2016 code while he was here, and then said, hey, we need to update this to the 2019 code because we're currently working off the 2016. So he was going off the current standards when he was here for that period of time, so.
The appendices are the only thing we have as a discretion whether we change them, which is more stricter than the existing code.
And the question of being charter, it doesn't matter? I guess you
The
take
requirements
your
for
hat-
building are the requirements for building in the state of
Let me
California.
ask our city attorney, sir, what are your thoughts on our charter? Does it allow us to do certain things that maybe other, general general law cities?
Charter cities are not bound by home rule provisions where general law cities have to follow everything that the legislature punches out. I don't know that these are home rule issues. I was just remarking to our city manager, this is not something that clearly is something we can avoid just because we're a charter city, so I would have to research the issue. I do believe it's of statewide concern, and once it's of statewide concern, being a charter city doesn't help you. There are a number of things that the legislature declares to be of statewide concern. That declaration isn't necessarily binding on charter cities. That's what courts resolve. But that being said, I'm not prepared to tell you that you can just not
Through the chair.
go through these.
Yes, sir.
Question, so if we're talking about these two coming up to date with the state, current with the state on these two, but the additional items that you're going to bring back in the next coming weeks, those are going to just be preference ordinances that are preferences that are brought by staff?
Correct. So there's 3 of them this evening, fire code, electrical code, and the building standards code, to bring those up to date. On the 4th, there is a recommendation from the contract city building official for Title 13 and 14 recommended changes, along with the fire chief with some recommended changes in that. So that's what we would bring forth at the next meeting. That's part of our municipal code, where you have the opportunity to accept, modify, deny, or whatever the discussion, wherever the discussion takes us on whatever those limitations are, or expanding upon that at that point in time.
At least for me, going back to what I just said, I think we want to make sure that whatever we're doing, I mean, if we have to comply by the state health and safety codes, fine, it makes sense, we don't want to get sued. And it probably makes it a lot easier for someone who wants to do business here, so there's no, they'll look at our code and they'll say, well, they don't have to comply with the new 19 codes because it's not written, so, just to make it easier for everyone to understand that we're following the state law, because we still have to apply it. But again, for me, my whole hesitation is assuring that it doesn't take away from people wanting to do business here. We should make it as easy as possible and still be able to follow health and safety regulations.
And we agree with you. That's the mission of our code enforcement task force. It's not totally the enforcement side of it. It's to be business friendly, to attract other businesses here, make it easy for them. However, on the other side of it, it's also to hold the dilapidated building property owners accountable for not fixing up their properties and encourage them to do something with their properties, so then we can make it look better, make it more marketable for those other businesses that want to come here. on that side of it. So we're just trying to align ourselves with that side of it so we can have the accountability there for those certain issues and be able to have those check boxes. So when we come to the city attorney with our case finding, like one of our most recent ones, and down in the 300 block of C Street, I mean, that's kind of where we started with it. So, we need to hold some of them accountable in order to spruce up those buildings and properties so we're attracting more people to the city, and that's one of the big purposes for getting all these codes aligned, so.
I appreciate that. Any other comments?
I just want to say that I'm in very much agreement with you. Obviously, we never want to set aside safety. But when we can, we definitely want to keep ourselves friendly. And that's why my concern about going back retroactively or changing a tenant, not necessarily changing the usage, but changing the tenant. I just want to make sure where we fall, because we want to keep it for, we want to be business friendly. So just want to reiterate that.
Thank you. Without any further comments from the council, seeing none, let's see if I can get this right. I'd like to entertain a motion to pass waiving the first reading of the ordinance per described by staff, and two, at the same time, direct city clerk to publish and comply with California Government Code sections 502.2.3 and 6066 with the second reading and adoption schedule for February 18th, 2020. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Ms. McKenzie. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Simmons. How many years have we been working together and I forget your name? That's pretty sad. I'm sorry.
Seems like not very long.
Motion and second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion is approved with a vote of 5-0. Any committee reports?
I do.
Yes, sir.
I attended the Water Agency meeting today on the groundwater sustainability plan, and the city manager informed me that our affirmative action on that plan will be on the next February 4th agenda for us to either deny or accept, and so we're the last one, if I'm not mistaken, that has, and Cordova, they approved theirs, but we're the last one, so we'll be bringing that forth. And also at the same time, I think the fire chief has an announcement to make from the water agency meeting today. If he doesn't, I'll tell him, but.
No, I blacked out for a few minutes. We were successful in the proposal for asking for funding of $100,000 through Yuba Water Agency to support our Quick Attack project. And so we had passed the pod phase, and today they approved that on a consent. Didn't even really balk at it. So it was nice to see their support. They really support these types of projects, and was ecstatic to be involved with a project like this.
Congratulations, Chief.
Good job.
That's satisfying. Another question. Do you have in your plans to make some assignments on the Park and Recreation and Traffic Committee? Where are we with that?
Yeah, I was waiting for staff to give me some guidance on that.
We've done some preliminary research, and we weren't able to find anything, Nicole, in the municipal code, and so we were going to get a copy of what you drafted, Councilmember Simmons, and I was going to give a copy of that to Nicole to also take a look at and bring to the council. But the current municipal code, the way it's written, there's no purview or goal or those things that you asked for in the current code. So it would be adopting a new set of goals and mission for those committees.
That's exactly right, if I might interject.
So I know you guys are well-intentioned, and you guys want to provide a lot, a good input and support to staff in these different areas. And I'm adding even more to our February 22nd meeting, our goal-setting meeting. When is it?
February 21st.
21st.
Goal setting, yep.
I guess if staff can be prepared for us to discuss the mission of those committees, then we can all be in agreement what the expected outcomes of these committees would be. Would that be fair? So something drafted there, and we can review it, and we can kind of talk about it? Okay.
Well, that was the reason I wrote those, one for the Parks and Recreation and one for the traffic and parking, because there is nothing in there to give the scope of work of what the committee is supposed to do.
Right.
And you're absolutely right. And so when I did that, I did it through the auspice of the city manager to be perused. So and I thought that's what you were asking for. That's why we passed them forward.
Sounds good. So is that fair? Is that okay?
Sure.
Yes.
Okay.
We're still empowered. You haven't disbanded us yet, so.
We still have to make decisions.
Yeah, we can still meet.
Let's move, anything else? Any other committee reports? SACOG meeting met this last week, and I was able to bring Craig, Marty, and Jonathan to meet SACOG staff, and I thought it was a productive meeting, a good introductory meeting, and I think Jonathan and Craig made some good connections, and hopefully you guys will be able to kind of follow up with whatever happened out there, and I think the more our staff interacts with SACOG staff, the better off we're going to be, the more up-to-date we'll be for funding opportunities. I'll be part of the Transportation Committee, making the rules on how the money's going to be spent, so that's going to be important for you guys to communicate to me, what's the best way to get, those funding to our small communities out here. As you know, I was also selected vice chair, so I look forward to that. Being part of kind of a leadership role at the SACOG. We'll be going to San Diego on the 30th and 31st for visiting their COG over there in San Diego. So I'm looking forward to that. Looking forward to the Cap and Cap visit coming up as well. But there's going to be a lot of work happening in commercial corridors with SACOG, which I'll be part of that committee as well, and just focusing on things that we can do in our region to spruce up our commercial corridors that are being left behind with new construction. And so we're trying to find ways to making sure that we find monies to make sure that we are putting those older commercial corridors to great use, like our D Street here. So one of the things that I think was pretty clear from SACOG staff, if they see Marysville as a place where they can test a lot of pilot projects, that means more funding for us to be able to do some innovative things in our city. So it should be a pretty busy year for us in trying to make sure that they see Marysville as a place where they can use us if they have to pilot some great projects and bring us some more money to our area. The U.S. Sutter Transfer had a meeting this last week. We're going to start looking at piloting, getting some more funding to pilot some new projects. What I'm suggesting to the U.S. Sutter Transit is to look at how do we look at some of the parking pressures that our hospital's putting in our city for our neighborhoods and for our other businesses around the hospital. Marty met with their staff and some interesting things happened, and I think we're having hopefully a more open communication with them. And the stuff with the fire department came up also as well, and I think they're coming up with some solutions. That bottom line is, I think the U.S. Sutter Transit could also be part of the solution, maybe finding shuttles to bring the workforce to the hospital instead of having to park all the time around the hospital. So we'll try to find some funding for that as well. Any other committee reports from any other committees? I think all your appointments are set. You should be starting in the next month in your committees. We had a waste committee. Anything on the waste committee? No. Okay. Aside from that, any council correspondence?
Yes, Mayor. The council has received a letter from the Marysville Cemetery Commission wanting to digitize the older burial records. All members of the council have received a copy of this letter, which can be found in your individual inboxes at City Hall.
So what do we take to get that into our agenda?
Just the request and the coordination with the city manager's office or the city attorney.
What's the cost, like, if we were to send those records out?
Actually, I don't know what the cost is off the top of my head, but what they're proposing is to have somebody come in, camp out in our office and do the scanning in the Community Development Department, and I haven't had a chance yet to discuss it with the Public Works Director. We just got this in the last week, I think, late last week. So I was going to discuss it with Craig first and sort of see what his thoughts were on
Okay.
that. The idea is not to remove the books. We would definitely not want them to remove any historic documents from the city, but to come in and be like a volunteer and camp out and digitize.
I don't think it's as easy as just scanning things. I mean, I imagine there's companies out there that kind of do these type of stuff.
Yes, there are.
So I mean, they might mean well, but I don't think we want to just let our historical documents, well, not even leave, just being handled by someone who might not be trained in handling, those type of documents.
So we were going to discuss it, and then I was going to come back with a recommendation to the council.
Be like the library. No,
It'd be cool, it'd be
historical
amazing,
value. No,
but we don't want to get them destroyed or damaged just because someone's, means well.
A lot of that stuff walked out the door.
Okay, any other correspondence?
Not at this time.
Okay, city manager's report?
I have no report.
I did have a question on your report about the pothole kind of plan that's being laid out and whether or not that could be made public to, on our website.
Yeah, I believe I responded today, and I'll let the council know as soon as Craig and I are going to work on a plan for how we can map that out and then get it on the city's website and maybe even the Facebook page. And
Yeah, it'd be good because I think a lot of us get calls for pothole fixing, and you guys have done a tremendous job in kind of being proactive. But I guess we want a more systematic way, and people understand the systematic way of how things are being taken care of. If they're just being kind of whoever comes in first, it's probably not the best way to doing it.
it has definitely been complaint-driven up till now, you're
Yeah.
right.
Okay, council comments, Ms. McKenzie.
Yes. Well, first, I just really was sorry to hear about Wayne Knolt passing, so condolences to his family. I really enjoyed, we went to the 170th anniversary over at the Arts Council, and that was just such a great evening, great performance, and what I really enjoyed about it was that so many different community partners had joined together to make it happen and participated in it. So it was a great event, so happy anniversary, Marysville. And we attended the MLK Walk on Saturday with the Emmanuel Worship Center, and the Bethel AME Church had organized the Unity Walk to honor Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. on Saturday, and that was a really great event. 60 people came and walked in that from Ampla Health over to Bethel AME, and they had a little program, so that was just a great community event to be part of.
Thank you. Mr. Hudson?
I just want to say I kind of liked Tom Linenger and the rest of the Gold Sox people coming up here, and I really enjoyed Mr. Bell's little story about Stassi's fourth ward. I'd heard a lot of those things before, and I got a lot of the pictures up on my walls to support the history of it, and I even have a signed poster from all the 2,000 Mudcats up on the walls, and it's a very historical thing in town. Even though I can't play baseball to save my life, I do respect it. It's one of those non-contact sports I don't do well in. So I do appreciate what they're trying to do for the city and just kind of keep the history going, and I hope that we can work with them and go from there. I'm not 100% sure what it's going to look like, but yeah.
Mr. Simmons?
Yeah, just one comment. I've been reviewing my colleagues going to be able to get their passes.
Oh.
You knew that was coming. I think Stephanie has the 12th TAC Recon Honorary Commander, so she's got hers. I asked staff to check that out. Where are we? May I ask?
She checked with us today.
Okay, you're ready to go, right?
When are you guys going?
Well, I can only take one.
I know, but when is the bus leaving?
Probably as soon as possible, as soon as he's ready to rock. because it won't take us, I gotta call John. I saw him at the commissary the other day, and he says, all you gotta do is call me, I'm waiting.
Yeah.
So you need to get that done real soon, so.
I do.
You tell me when you wanna go, and I will take you out there,
Thank you, sir.
one at a time.
And weekdays, mostly.
Weekdays?
9 to 5.
Yeah, they don't
type of
work
stuff.
on weekends.
Yeah. I mean, they're ready for anything, but just not the administrative portion.
No, but let me know. We need to get that off your plate so you can participate in the Commander's Thanksgiving Day dinner, the Commander's Christmas holiday, all that good stuff.
Little golf.
Marty, are you going to get a pass?
Yes.
Okay, well, speak up, young lady, just making sure. Okay, thank you, that's all I have.
All right.
You've been reprimanded.
Vice Mayor?
I want to comment on two things. One's on the baseball. Just, nobody goes back as far as the Bellses do with it, but I did play in the original Little League park that was here. That was at the base of the 10th Street Bridge, and I did play in the original Bryant Field, not the original at Lonzo's place, but the one where it's at now. I did play there too, and it is amazing history to go back and play. I also have two cousins that played for the Twin City Giants, and one of them went on to play for the Cincinnati Reds. So that's my little piece of it, that history. But I want to just say I'm glad to see we have a full staff. I'm looking forward to meet Jonathan and have a conversation. And Craig and I are going to have a little one tomorrow and kind of learn about each other. And but I'm just happy to see that we finally have a completed. I'm sure you are too. That we have a completed staff now. Thanks.
Okay. I had to give Mr. Belza whatever time he wanted, so I hope you're okay with that.
Huh?
I said, I hope it was okay with you guys allowing Mr. Belza, to have whatever time he wanted.
I could have listened longer, but
Yeah.
that was good.
You're the man, you control the clock.
There's been a rash of stolen vehicles in East Marysville the last couple weeks. And speaking to the chief of police, I know that they're proactively, trying to catch these folks. So I appreciate that. But it seems like, just yesterday there was another one or something. It's like every few days there's folks out there. So I do call for people to make sure that don't leave their vehicles, unlocked, or don't leave them on while you're, warming them up and, going inside getting your lunch, because it only takes a few seconds, especially if you don't lock it. So those have been some of the incidents. So I do call for the public to just be smart about locking your cars. I know I do it all the time, leave my car unlocked, and it's probably not the smartest thing. So, in any case, the MLK event was also an opportunity for people to sign up. There's a group of folks who are calling for Fifth Street to be named after Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. I'm in support of that for a number of reasons, mainly because I think it's going to be an opportunity to bring people together, to have a discussion, an open, free discussion about what that means and what it doesn't mean. And I hope that that we take our time, have opportunities to have discussions for those who might not be on the fence or on the other side of the fence, or whichever side of the fence you may be. I think what MLK would expect is for us to have open discussions and just talk about what would that mean for a city of Marysville to have a Martin Luther King Boulevard in our city. So with that, we will be adjourning our meeting in memory of our friend Wayne Nolt Jr., who passed away a few days ago, and he was also served the city as our planning commissioner. So I know that he will be missed by a lot of folks, a lot of friends and family, and by the city for his work in the planning commission. Now we'll move to closed session. There are 2, 4, 5 items in closed session. I'm not going to read them all, but I do want to let public know that we're looking at real property negotiated with Brian Field on with the Gold Sox. We're also looking at Plumas Lake Golf Course. There is looks like a case, Brown versus City of Marysville, that we have to discuss, and also existing litigation on a workers' compensation issue, and conference with labor negotiators designee Representative Brian Borson, City Attorney, and unrepresented employee City Manager. And we'll reconvene after those items are discussed. Okay, staff were given direction and no action was taken, reconvene to open session. Our next meeting will be on Tuesday, February 4th, and we adjourn this meeting in memory of our Planning Commissioner, Mr. Wayne Knoll Jr.